Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever read those headlines about a place and just thought, wait, is there more going on here? Well, today, that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking a real deep dive into Jammu and Kashmir. It's a region that, well, it's often seen through a pretty narrow lens, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's often misunderstood.
Yeah.
But it's just this vast, incredibly complex place, a rich tapestry of history, amazing geography, and a really vibrant culture.
Yeah.
So our mission today, basically, is to sift through a whole lot of sources, articles, research papers, our notes, and pull out the really crucial bits. We want to help you, the listener, quickly get genuinely well-informed about this really pivotal part of India.
Right.
Hopefully uncovering some surprising facts, maybe a few aha moments along the way, things you might not get elsewhere.
Exactly. So whether you're maybe prepping for a meeting or trying to catch up on regional studies, or maybe you're just, curious, this deep dive is really for you. So let's start peeling back those layers. Where do we begin? History.
Let's start way back. The historical roots, well, they stretch right back to the Maharata period, according to our sources. The region was apparently under a kind of republican system governed by the Kambojas.
Okay.
And their capital was Rajapura, which is modern-day Rajouri.
Got it. Rajouri.
Later on, the Panchala tribe made its mark, so much so that the Pir Panjal range, that big mountain range, its name is thought to come from them.
Wow. Pir Panjal from Kanchala. That's fascinating. What about, really ancient evidence? Archaeology?
Oh, definitely. The Neolithic age findings are quite something.
Yeah.
Near Srinagar, there's a site called Burzahom, and the discoveries there, they date back to 2375 BC. It was actually India's first archaeological site of its kind.
2375 BC. So what do they find?
Really interesting stuff. Pit dwellings, for one, like these circular pits dug into the earth, maybe up to 3 meters deep. They were sort of narrow at the top, wider at the base. Some even showed signs of wooden pole supports for roofs.
Living underground, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. And it wasn't just basic shelters. There's evidence pointing to a surprisingly advanced society for its time. We're talking early agriculture. They found seeds of wheat, barley, lentils, so they were farming.
Okay.
And the tools. Not just crude stones. They found advanced copper and stone tools, things like fine needles, harpoons, arrowheads.
Needles, so sewing hides and things.
Exactly, stitched hides. And maybe the most intriguing thing, a Neolithic skull from Burzahom with a carefully drilled hole.
A drilled hole, like surgery.
Well, that's the speculation. Early surgical practices, perhaps. It's debated, of course, but really fascinating. Other sites like Gofgral add to this picture, too.
Imagine that level of sophistication thousands and thousands of years ago. Incredible. So moving forward in time, empires started moving in.
Right. From around 300 BC, the region became a real focal point for powerful empires. First up, the Mauryan Empire, especially under Emperor Ashoka, between 304 and 232 BCE. He left a huge mark.
Ashoka.
Yeah.
What did he do there?
He founded Srinagari, which we know today as Pandrathan, commissioned lots of viharas, Buddhist monasteries, and also Shiva temples. And it was during his time that Buddhism first really arrived in Kashmir, brought by a missionary called Marshantika.
So Buddhism and Hinduism coexisting early on.
Seems so. And after Ashoka, his son Jaluka apparently restored peace after fighting off some foreign tribes. Then you get the Kushan dynasty, rulers like Hushka, Jushka, Kanishka. They established towns, more temples, more monasteries.
So layer upon layer of influence.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how all these different empires managed to weave their own cultural threads into the region, creating something so unique.
But it wasn't all peaceful building, was it? I remember reading about the Huns.
Yes. The Hephthalites, or White Huns. Under Toramana, and especially his son Mirakala, around the 5th, early 6th centuries, they were quite destructive. Mihirakala particularly had a reputation for demolishing shrines, though they were eventually defeated.
Right, and
then the Gonanda dynasty comes into focus. Ganandasekis is mentioned by Kalhana in the Rajataranjini as the first king. Later, a king named Pravarasena II expanded the state's boundaries and actually founded modern Srinagar, the city we know today.
Modern Srinagar, okay. But wasn't there one dynasty that was particularly powerful around then?
You're probably thinking of the Karkota dynasty, and specifically Lalitaditya Muktapida.
That's the one.
He reigned from 724 to 760 AD, often called the Samudragupta of Kashmir, and for good reason. His conquests were extensive across Asia, India, Punjab, Kannauj, Tibet, parts of Iran, Bihar, South India, Gujarat. The list goes on.
Wow, an empire builder.
Absolutely. And significantly, he's credited with breaking Arab power in Sindh, a major feat back then.
Definitely.
Also during the Karkota dynasty, under an earlier ruler, Durlab Habartana, the famous Chinese pilgrim Huanzhang visited. He apparently spent nearly 2 years in Kashmir studying Sanskrit and Hindu scriptures.
So Kashmir was a major center of learning, too.
Very much so. You can just feel the history packed into that period.
So what happened next? Moving into the medieval period.
Right. The medieval period saw more shifts. The Utpala dynasty from 855 to 939 AD. Under Avantevarman, peace was restored. He established Avantipura, a city with notable Shiva and Vishnu temples. And his engineer, a guy named Suya, actually founded Suyapur, modern Sopore, probably based on drainage works he did.
An engineer founding a town. Cool.
Then a brief period of Brahminic rule under Yashaskara, just for about 9 years, 939 to 948 AD.
Very brief.
Followed by the Deva dynasty from 1171 to 1339 AD. This period saw a really significant turning point. During the reign of Sadev, a Mongol chief named Dalucha invaded. Sadev fled.
Creating a power vacuum.
Exactly, which allowed Rinchan, who was a Ladakhi prince, to step in and become Kashmir's first Muslim ruler. He took the title Sultan Sadruddin.
First Muslim ruler, okay.
But the last Hindu ruler was actually a queen, Kota Rani. A brave figure, apparently, but her rule ended when Shamir took over and founded his own dynasty in 1339 AD.
The Shamir dynasty. Any notable rulers there?
Definitely. Sultan Zain al-Abidin. He reigned from 1420 to 1470 AD. A really interesting figure. Considered a great Muslim ruler, reconquered lost territories, but also known for fostering good relations with neighboring kingdoms. Sort of a blend of strength and diplomacy.
It sounds like a golden age, Bram.
In many ways, yes. After them came the Chak dynasty, 1555 to 1586 AD. They originated from the Dard territory. And they're famous for resisting the Mughals. Babur tried, Humayun tried. The Chaks held them off for decades. Until Akbar's forces finally defeated Yusuf Shah Chak in 1586, and that paved the way for Mughal rule starting the next year, 1587.
Right, the Mughals. A huge influence across India. How did they impact Kashmir?
Significantly, the Mughal era lasted from 1587 to 1752 AD. Akbar, after the conquest, got Raja Todarmal to sort out the revenue system. Very important. Akbar also started building the Hari Parbat fort and a new town, Nagarmagar, in Srinagar, reshaping the capital.
And the famous gardens. Weren't they Mughal?
Yes, absolutely. Jahangir, Akbar's son, was apparently besotted with Kashmir. Visited 13 times.
13?
Yeah. And during those visits, he commissioned those iconic Mughal gardens, Nishaq Bagh, Shalimar Bagh, still stunning today.
They really are.
Shah Jahan, his son, continued the tradition, added to gardens like Chashmi Shahi around 1632 AD, and further developed Shalimar and Varanag. It was like a royal passion project.
A beautiful legacy. But Mughal rule didn't last forever?
No. It ended, followed by a period of Afghan or Pathan rule, which apparently was quite harsh, ended around 1819 AD. Conditions got so bad, actually, that Kashmiri Pandits went to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Sikh ruler, for help.
Leading to Sikh rule?
Exactly. Sikh rule lasted 27 years, from 1819 to 1846 AD, overseen by 10 different governors. Dewan Moti Ram was the first. Unfortunately, our sources suggest this period was marked by neglect, and natural disasters made things worse for the people.
Not ideal. What came after the Sikhs?
The Dogra rule. This is where the modern shape of the state really starts to form. Maharaja Rambir Singh, who ruled from 1857 to 1885 AD, was key. He was an expansionist, annexed Trans-Himalayan territories, Gilgit, Astor, Hunzanagar, significantly expanded the state.
And built temples, too.
Yes, the famous Rigunath temple complex in Jammu. This Dogra era essentially unified Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh into one large princely state,
setting the stage for its eventual status within the Indian Union.
Precisely. A really complex, layered history.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pivot now. From history to the land itself, the geography, the resources. It's known for its beauty, but what's the actual layout?
Geographically, it's right at the top, India's northernmost region. The altitudes are just incredibly varied. You go from about 3,000 feet up to a staggering 22,740 feet.
Wow, huge range.
Yeah. The area under Indian control is about 101,387 square kilometers, which actually makes it India's fifth largest state by area, though population-wise, it's 19th.
Fifth largest by area. Interesting. Is it all mountains?
Not entirely, though mountains dominate. It's actually divided into 7 distinct physiographic divisions.
7. Okay, what are they?
You've got the plains, the foothills, the lesser Himalayas, the greater Himalayas, the famous Valley of Kashmir, the upper Indus Valley, and finally, the Karakoram region way up north.
Let's focus on the Valley of Kashmir for a moment. What makes it distinct?
Well, it's this deep, sort of asymmetrical basin nestled between the Pir Panjal Range and the Greater Himalayas. And it's famous for its karawas. You heard of those?
Karawas, they're like flat-top plateaus.
Exactly. Unique geological formations, ancient lakebed sediments, basically. Very fertile, great for farming. Saffron country.
Ah, saffron. Right.
The valley also has 3 important side valleys. Litter, Sindh, and Lolab, each beautiful in its own right.
And the Karakoram region. Sounds intense.
It is, nicknamed the roof of the world, home to some of the planet's highest peaks, including K2 at 8,611 meters.
K2, wow.
Yeah, and that whole region stays heavily glaciated pretty much year-round, really extreme high-altitude environment.
Incredible. What about specific mountains or passes that are really notable?
Well, there's a Farwat in Gulmarg, great skiing spot, about 4,390 meters. Burzil Pass, around 4,100 meters, historically important. It divides Kashmir and Ladakh, used to be a key caravan route.
An ancient highway, basically.
Kind of. Then you have Nunkun, peaking at 7,135 meters. That's the highest point on the Indian side of the line of control within J&K.
Okay.
And the Pir Panjal Range itself, separating the Kashmir Valley from the outer Himalayas. It's crossed by many important passes like the Nihal Pass, Baramulla Pass, Haji Kir Pass, vital links historically and today.
So mountains and passes defining the connections. What about the water systems? Rivers, lakes.
Rivers are crucial. The Hallam River is often called the lifeline of Srinagar, and it really is. It flows right through Srinagar, also Baramulla, Anantnag. It's even navigable for a long stretch from Konabal to Wular Lake.
And used for power.
Oh, yes. Major hydel projects like Danderbal and Uri are on the Jhelum, hugely important for electricity.
What other key rivers?
The Litter River is a major tributary of the Jhelum. Starts from the Kolohoy Glacier, flows through beautiful Pahalgam. Then up in Ladakh, the Indus River is dominant. It actually starts in Tibet, near Mansarovar Lake.
Indus, right?
Flows for over 1,100 kilometers in India, cutting through the Ladakh and Zanskar ranges. Fed by tributaries like the Shyok, Suru, Zanskar. Even the Nubra River, which flows into the Shyok, gets its water from the massive Siachen Glacier.
Siachen.
Yeah.
Wow. And the lakes. We hear about Dal Lake all the time.
Dal Lake is iconic, definitely. Jewel in the crown, floating gardens, shikaras. It's famous for a reason, but there are many others. Wular Lake is actually India's largest freshwater lake, a haven for migratory birds.
Largest freshwater lake, okay.
And Nalisbal Lake is known for being the deepest in Kashmir, and it connects to the Jhelum. In the Jammu region, you have Mensar and Surinsar lakes, both freshwater, very picturesque, often tied to local legends like the Sheshnag Shrine at Mansar.
And Ladakh. Any lakes up there?
Oh, yes. Pangong Lake is probably the most famous now. That incredible high-altitude saltwater lake, 134 kilometers long, sitting at 4,350 meters, shared with China.
Right. The color changes.
Yeah.
Stunning photos.
Absolutely. Then there's Somariri Lake, also high altitude, but less salty than Pangong, so it actually supports more bird life. It's a protected reserve.
So diverse lakes across the regions, glaciers too?
Definitely. Besides Siachen, there's Hispar Glacier, the 3rd largest in the Himalayas outside the polar regions, and Nubra Glacier, feeding the Nubra River. They underscore the region's cryosphere, its frozen water reserve.
And springs? Any famous ones?
Several. Varanog Spring is famous as the source of the Relum River. Martan Spring is ancient near the Sun Temple ruins. Akabal and Kokranag are known for their gardens built around springs. And Chashma Shahi in Srinagar, part of the Mughal Gardens, its water is said to have digestive properties.
Digestive water. Interesting. Okay, let's talk about the ground itself. The soils, you mentioned Karawas for saffron. What else?
The soils are quite varied, as you'd expect with the geography, classified into about 8 main groups: brown earth, podzolic, mountain forest soils, alluvial soils down in the plains, and so on. Each supports different crops, safflower, maize, wheat, rice, even sugarcane in some areas.
But the Karawas are unique.
very unique to the Kashmir Valley, especially around Pampore. These ancient lakebed deposits have this amazing high water holding capacity, absolutely perfect for saffron cultivation. It's why Kashmiri saffron is world-renowned.
Makes sense.
There are also local soil types people recognize, like Nambol, which is peaty, found near lakes. Surdsman is good vegetable soil, and Rod is the soil used to build those floating gardens on Dal Lake.
Floating gardens. Amazing ingenuity. But is there an issue with soil health?
Unfortunately, yes, it's a significant challenge. Sources indicate that about a third of J&K's land area is affected by soil degradation.
A third? That's high.
It is, and worse, around 78% of that is under severe erosion. That figure is way above the national average.
Why so high?
Multiple factors, really. Faulty land use practices, deforestation, cutting down trees that hold the soil, overgrazing by livestock. It puts a lot of pressure on the land, a delicate balance.
Definitely something needing attention. What about mineral wealth? Is J&K rich in minerals?
Honestly, it's not considered a major mineral powerhouse compared to some other Indian states. Most known deposits are actually concentrated in the Jammu region. The first proper geological survey was way back in 1924 by a Mr. Middlemist.
Okay, so what do they have?
Well, there's lignite, a type of coal found in places like Kupwara, Baramulla, Lolab Valley. Bauxite, which is the ore for aluminum, is found in Udhampur and Ramban districts. Graphite, used in pencils in Baramulla, sulfur deposits up in the Puga Valley in Leh, even some uranium potential noted in Ladakh.
Uranium.
And building materials too, like marble and granite for decorative stone, and quartzite, which is used in glassmaking and even the IT industry.
Yeah.
So while maybe not super abundant, there's a definite variety.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears to the economy. How do people make a living? Agriculture must be huge.
Central. Agriculture and horticulture are really the backbone, especially given the diverse climates subtropical in Jammu, temperate in Kashmir, cold arid in Ladakh. This means varied cropping patterns. You have kharif crops, summer crops like rice and maize, and rabi crops, winter ones like wheat and barley.
Different timings depending on the region.
Exactly. The Kashmir Valley often follows what's called an ekfasli pattern, basically, one main crop per year because of the climate. Though some areas specialize, like Ranbir Singhpora near Jammu, famous for its basmati rice.
Ah, basmati. And rice is the main staple.
Yes, rice is the staple food. Kashmir Valley is often called the rice bowl of the state. Wheat is important too, mainly a rabi crop, but interestingly, it's grown as a kharif crop in parts of Ladakh. Maize is also widely grown.
And saffron, we mentioned that.
Saffron, grown on those Karewa lands, especially around Pulwama. Highly prized, very valuable.
But horticulture is where J&K really shines internationally, right?
Absolutely. It's a massive part of the economy, contributes something like 7-8% to the state's GDP, and around 45% of the total agricultural output value. Huge numbers.
What kind of fruits are we talking about?
Primarily famous for its temperate fruits. Apples, of course, Kashmir apples are legendary, but also pears, peaches, apricots, cherries, almonds, plums.
A fruit basket.
Totally. And in the subtropical Jammu region, you get mangoes, guavas, citrus fruits. Baramulla district is reportedly the largest producer of fresh fruit overall.
And walnuts. You mentioned something amazing about walnuts earlier.
Yes, the walnut fact. It's pretty striking. Jammu and Kashmir produces something like 90% of India's entire walnut crop.
90%? That's incredible.
It is. Varieties like Kagzi, Suleiman, Brazil. It's a major, major contributor to India's dry fruit market, often overlooked.
Wow. Any other major plant-based industries? Flowers.
Floriculture is definitely growing. The big highlight is Asia's largest tulip garden, set up in Sarajbagh, Srinagar, a huge tourist draw in spring. Key flower-producing districts include Kathua, Udhampur, Rajouri, Kishtwar. There's a lot of potential there.
All this farming needs water, obviously. How does irrigation work?
It's critical. About 43.3% of the net sown area is irrigated. Canals are the main method, covering about 8.6% of that, then wells and other sources like tanks and lifts.
And the canal system's different in each region?
Yes, they are adapted to the local rivers. In Jammu, you have major systems like the Ranbir Singh Canal, taking water from the Chenab River to irrigate Jammu and Arispura, also the Pratap Canal from the Chenab. And the Ravi Tali irrigation complex uses both gravity and lift methods.
Okay. And in Kashmir.
Kashmir has some very old canals. The Martan Canal, drawing from the Lidder River, is said to be the oldest. The Zainajir Canal was built by Sultan Zainul Abidin, that ruler we mentioned earlier. Shows foresight. There are many others too, like Lokul Canal.
Smart use of river water. What about Ladakh? Very different terrain.
Very different. Irrigation there relies primarily on the Indus River and its tributaries. The Sho, Suru, Dras, Zanskar rivers have nulas, or small streams coming off them. They have these local, often community-managed canals called mayur, or kools, that channel meltwater to the fields. Ingenious adaptation to the environment.
Mayor. Interesting. Okay, beyond plants, what about animals? Animal husbandry.
Another major livelihood source, especially important in the Jammu region, but present throughout. Sheep rearing is big. J&K actually ranks 5th in India in terms of sheep population.
5th. Wow.
Yeah. They're known for producing fine wool, including merino and rambouillet types, which were introduced to improve local breeds. And there are unique local breeds, too, like Changthengi in Ladakh and the Bakerwali sheep, herded by the nomadic Bakerwal people.
And the famous pashmina. That comes from sheep.
Good question. No, pashmina wool comes from goats, specifically the Changthengi goat, reared by pastoral communities in the high-altitude Changtheng area of Ladakh.
Got it. Goats, not sheep.
Right. That incredibly fine undercoat is harvested to make those luxurious pashmina shawls, world famous.
What other animals are important?
Yaks are indispensable in Ladakh for transport, milk, meat, wool. There's also growing interest in rabbit farming potential for meat, wool, angora, and even uses in pharmaceuticals.
Rabbits, okay. Poultry, fisheries.
Poultry farming has seen significant growth, with farms concentrated around Srinagar, Pulwama, Anantnag, Budgam, and fisheries. Well, given the sheer number of rivers, streams, and lakes, the potential for the fisheries sector is considered tremendous, both capture and culture fisheries.
Lots of potential there. Now, what about industries beyond agriculture and animals? Manufacturing.
The industrial base is dominated by cottage industries, partly due to the geography and climate, maybe challenges in large-scale setup. They're especially famous for handloom fabrics, woolen, and silk textiles. We'll talk more about crafts later. Other core industries include things like hosiery, basic metal products, wood products, food processing.
Where are the main industrial areas located?
Key areas include Samba, Udhampur, and Bari Brahmana near Jammu city. In Kashmir, places like Zabura near Srinagar and Ampora and Budgam district have industrial estates.
What are some specific examples of industries?
Okay, so agro-based, you've got rice mills, flour mills, fruit processing units logically following the agriculture. Forest-based, there's production of resins and turpentine from pine trees, centered in places like Miran Sahib and Sundarbani.
Resin? For what?
Used in various things, varnishes, adhesives. Interestingly, the lacquer derived from resin is a key ingredient in papier-mâché.
Papier-mâché. That's uniquely Kashmiri, isn't it?
Very much so. Reportedly introduced by Sultan Zain ul Abidin again. It uses paper pulp mixed with adhesive, then it's molded, dried, painted intricately with mineral, organic, or vegetable colors, and often varnished.
What kind of things do they make?
Beautiful decorative items, mainly. Pen boxes, jewelry boxes, vases, bowls, picture frames. They have a strong international market. It's incredible art from simple materials.
Truly is. And the handlooms. Shawls are the big one.
Shawls are iconic. Pashmina, of course. But also ring shawls. Chatouche, though now banned due to the endangered antelope source, and Jamavar shawls with intricate woven patterns. Embroidery is another huge craft. Chain stitch, also called zalakdozi. Crewel work using a pointed hook or ari. Kachita kari, which is intricate needlework often on woolen items like farans. And in Jammu, the colorful fulkari embroidery.
So much detail. What about carpets?
Kashmiri carpets are also world-renowned. Two main types. Kubdan, which is pile carpet, often with Tibetan or Ladakhi designs introduced via Tibet-Ladakh, and Gaba, which is fascinating, it's embroidered, often using recycled woolen blankets as a base, decorated with crewel work. Also Namda, which are felted rugs made by compressing wool fibers.
Recycling blankets into art, that's resourceful, mineral-based industries.
Yes, there's cement production plants in Wuyan near Srinagar and Crew in Pulwama, utilizing local limestone. Metalwares too, traditional brassware and copperware, especially in Srinagar. Think of those ornate samovars for tea. Silverwares are also made. You see these crafts in Leh and Kargil too.
Samovars, right? The tea kettles.
Exactly. Then there's tourism. A major industry in itself, a huge employer, offers everything from adventure tourism, trekking, skiing to pilgrimage tourism. Jammu is the city of temples. Kashmir has the lakes and gardens. Ladakh is Little Tibet.
A huge draw. And any modern industries emerging, like IT.
Yes, information technology is seen as an emerging sunrise industry. There are software technology parks, STPs, set up in Rangreth near Srinagar and Ampora in Budgam. Initiatives like e-Khidmat centers aim to bring government services online. Still developing, but definitely a focus area.
Good to see. Now, energy. How is J&K powered, especially with all those mountains?
Hydropower is the key. J&K is primarily a hydropower generating state. The potential is massive, estimated around 20,000 megawatts.
20,000 milligio, that's enormous.
It is, but only about 20% of that potential has actually been exploited so far. The Chenab River Basin alone has the highest potential, over 11,000 mildigio.
So huge room for growth. What are the major hydro projects currently?
Some big ones include Baglahar on the Chenab, around 900 milW, Salal project, also on Chenab, Uri project on the Jhelum, Dulhasti on the Chandra River, a tributary of Chenab. Many projects are run-of-the-river type because the steep terrain often doesn't allow for large reservoirs.
Makes sense. What about renewable energy beyond hydro? Solar, wind.
Huge potential there, too, especially in Ladakh. Ladakh is sometimes called the solar capital of India due to the high solar radiation levels.
Solar capital. Interesting.
Yeah. Solar photovoltaic SPV technology is being promoted. There's a solar power policy from 2013 aiming to harness this. Geothermal energy also has potential, particularly in the Puga Valley and Ladakh and also near Riasi district. They're exploring projects maybe up to 100 milliW.
Geothermal tapping Earth's heat.
Exactly. And wind energy potential has been identified in places like Leh, Kupwara, Anantnag, Baramulla, Udhampur, so a diverse mix of renewables is possible.
Are there government schemes pushing energy access?
Yes, several central schemes are active. The Saubhagya scheme aimed for universal household electrification, providing free connections to the poor. The Ujala scheme promoted energy efficiency through subsidized LED bulbs, and the Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikaran Yojana focused on rural electrification infrastructure.
Okay, let's talk about getting around. Transport and communication. How does it work in such a challenging landscape?
Roads are the main mode of transport, but the road density is actually among the lowest in India, around 34.81 kilometers per 100 oval kilometers. Challenging terrain makes construction difficult and expensive.
Lowest density. Wow. But there are national highways.
Oh, yes. Around 2,423 kilometers of national highways connect major towns and regions. The Srinagar-Leh Road, about 430 kilometers, is a vital, albeit seasonal, link.
And isn't there a record-breaking road up there?
Yes. This is pretty amazing. The Border Roads Organization, BRO, built what's claimed to be the world's highest motorable road in Ladakh.
The highest? Where?
It's an 86-kilometer-long road that goes through the Umling Latop at a breathtaking altitude of 19,300 feet above sea level.
19,300 feet. Incredible engineering feat.
Truly is. Other famous high-altitude roads include the ones over Kardumla and Changla passes, also in Ladakh, vital for connectivity and defense.
What about rail transport? Is that significant?
Historically, not much. The railroad mix is low. Jammu Tawi Station has long been the main railhead for the region. But the big project is the Jammu Udhampur Srinagar Baramulla Railway Link, the USBRL project. It's arguably the biggest mountain railway project undertaken in India since independence.
The one connecting Kashmir Valley by train.
Exactly, a massive undertaking. It includes India's longest railway tunnel, the Pir Panjal Railway Tunnel, which is about 11.2 kilometers long. A game changer for connectivity.
Definitely. Air transport.
Crucial, especially given the terrain and seasonal road closures. There are 4 major airports: Jammu, Srinagar, Leh, and Kargil. Srinagar's airport, Sheikh Ul Alam International Airport, has been upgraded to handle international flights. Leh Airport is also vital, one of the highest commercial airports in the world.
Makes sense. Any water transport. Besides Shikaras on Dal Lake.
It's limited, mainly on the lakes and some river stretches. Traditionally, large boats called dungas were used for passengers, and kush, or bahash, for carrying goods. Less common now, but still part of the picture.
And communication. Media, phones.
Print media has a history. The first newspaper, Ranbir, started in 1924 in Urdu. Mass communication relies heavily on radio and TV. Radio Kashmir started way back in 1948. Doordarshan Kashmir, DD Kashmir, began broadcasting in 2003. And many FM channels have been approved since 2015.
Coastal Service.
Still important. Over 1,700 post offices across the state, according to the sources, and telecommunication. Well, wireless or mobile is preferred due to the terrain challenges for laying cables. All the major providers operate there, though connectivity can still be an issue in remote areas.
Okay, fascinating overview of the land and economy. Let's shift to governance, culture, and the social fabric. How is J&K governed? It had a special status, right?
Yes. Historically, it had a distinct constitutional relationship with the Indian Union, stemming from the Instrument of Accession. It had its own constitution until 2019. That constitution saw 21 amendments over its lifetime. The accession primarily covered external affairs, defense, and communications initially.
And the head of state.
The governor was the head of state, appointed by the President of India for a 5-year term. This role evolved from the earlier Sardar Irisat. Dr. Karan Singh was actually the first Sardar Irisat and then became the first governor after a constitutional amendment in 1965.
What powers did the governor have?
Typical gubernatorial powers, executive, legislative, financial, judicial, but also significant discretionary powers, including the power to impose governor's rule under Section 92 of the J&K Constitution, distinct from president's rule under Article 356 elsewhere in India. Governor's rule was imposed 8 times historically.
And the head of government?
The chief minister, appointed by the governor, usually the leader of the majority party in the assembly. Interestingly, the term for the CM in the assembly was 6 years, unlike 5 years in other Indian states. Ghulam Muhammad Sadiq was the first chief minister.
6-year terms. Okay.
Yeah.
And the legislature?
It was bicameral, meaning 2 houses, the Legislative Assembly, lower house, and the Legislative Council, upper house. The Legislative Assembly also had that 6-year tenure. Its composition was last defined by a 1988 amendment, setting it at 111 seats, though some were notionally reserved for areas across the Lost Sea. There was also a reservation for scheduled castes.
And the Legislative Council.
The Legislative Council, the upper house, had 36 members. Minimum age to be a member was 30. It acted as a revising chamber.
What about the judiciary?
There's the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. It had 14 judges, as per the sources. An interesting tradition was the Durbar move, where the High Court, along with the government secretariat, would shift capitals Jammu in winter, Srinagar in summer.
Durbar move, right?
Okay.
Below the High Court.
Subordinate courts, headed by district and sessions judges. Around 174 such courts were mentioned.
Let's talk local governance. Panchayati Raj.
Yes, J&K has its own history of local governance, dating back to a 1935 regulation. The modern framework was the J&K Panchayati Raj Act of 1989. It established a 3-tier model. At the village level, the Halk Panchayat, with 711 members elected for a 5-year term, and a directly elected Sarpanch head.
Okay, village level.
Then the Block Development Council, BDC, at the block level, chaired by one of the sarpanches from that block. And finally, the District Planning and Development Board, DPDB, at the district level, coordinating planning. There was also a provision for a Panchayati Adalat for each village, like a local justice body with 5 nominated members, empowered to impose small fines.
Interesting local justice system. What about Ladakh? It had something different, right?
Yes, the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Councils, or LAHDCs. One for Leh District, set up in 1995, and one for Kargil District, established in 2003.
Why were they created?
They came about due to demands from Ladakhis for greater autonomy to protect their distinct religious and cultural identity and manage local development. These councils have elected councillors and a chief executive councillor who holds the rank equivalent to a cabinet minister in the state government. They have significant powers over local administration and development funds.
Giving Ladakh more control locally makes sense. Now, demographics, population, tribes.
Population-wise, J&K ranked 19th among Indian states. Population density varies hugely, highest in Ganderbal district, lowest way up in Leh district. When it comes to scheduled tribes, STs, Kargil district had the highest percentage of ST population, almost 87%. Srinagar had the lowest, less than 1%. The vast majority of the tribal population, around 88%, follow Islam.
Who are the major tribes?
The Gojri speakers, who are mainly the Muslim Gujars, form the largest tribal group. The Bakarwals, traditionally nomadic shepherds, are the second largest. Then you have the Bot, or Boto people, mainly in Ladakh, related to Tibetans. The Balti people, also in Ladakh, particularly Kargil, show Tibetan and Dardic influences. The Brokpa tribe claims pure Aryan ancestry, which is quite unique.
Aryan ancestry claim.
Oh.
Interesting. Others?
Yes, the Gadi tribe, mainly involved in shepherding and agriculture, found more towards the Jammu region, the Purikpa in Kargil, and the Changpa, the high-altitude pastoralists of Ladakh's Chengthang Plateau, the ones who rear the Pashmina goats. They have Mongoloid features.
A real mosaic of people. What about languages?
Very diverse. Kashmiri is widely spoken, especially in the valley. It's part of the Dardic subgroup of Indo-Aryan languages, but heavily influenced by Persian. It's taught in schools, uses both Perso-Arabic and Devanagari scripts. In Ladakh, you primarily hear Ladakhi, which belongs to the Sino-Tibetan family and uses the Tibetan script.
Gojri, the language of the Gujars.
Yes, Gojri is an Indo-Aryan language, recognized as a regional language since 1999. Urdu was the official language of the state, also Indo-Aryan, but using Perso-Arabic script and vocabulary. Hindi is also widely understood and spoken, using the Devanagari script.
A multilingual place. What about literature? Any famous works or writers?
Rich literary tradition traces back to Sanskrit. Kalhana's Rajatarangini, written in the 12th century, is a famous Sanskrit chronicle of Kashmir's kings. It's invaluable historically. An early Kashmiri work is Shitikanta Charaya's Mahanaya Prakasa from the 13th century. Later, Sultan Zainal Abedin's court was known for patronizing poets.
Any famous poets?
Especially women.
Absolutely. Haba Khatun, a 16th century queen and poet, is legendary. She introduced the lal lyric form into Kashmiri poetry, expressing longing and love. Rupa Havani and Arnimal were other renowned poetesses from later periods.
A little lyric, nice. More modern poets. Ghulam Ahmad Major in the 20th century is often called Shair-e-Kashmir, poet of Kashmir. His work reflected growing nationalism. Post-independence, many writers gained prominence, winning Sahitya Akademi Awards, people like Dinanath Nadim, Rahman Rahi, Akhtar Mohyuddin.
A continuous literary stream. Now, arts and crafts. J&K is famous for this, right? Painting.
Yes, distinctive painting styles emerged. The Basholi style from the Jammu region is known for its blazing colors, bold lines, geometrical patterns. They even used iridescent beetle wings to depict jewelry.
Beetle wings.
Yeah, and the Mankot style is similar, though later examples used more subdued colors. Both are part of the Pahari school of miniature painting.
And the crafts. We touched on some, but let's recap. Shawls.
World-renowned. Pashmina, the incredibly soft wool from Changthengi goats. Ring shawls Shatush now banned. Jamavar with intricate woven patterns, the embroidery chain stitch, Zalakdozi, crowel work, Ari, Kashidakari, Fulkari, incredible skill.
Carpets.
Kabdan, pile carpets, often Ladakhi Tibetan designs. Gaba, embroidered from recycled wool. Namda, felted rugs, each unique.
Papier-mâché we discussed. Metal and stone.
Copperware, especially samovars from Srinagar. Silver items like bowls, tea sets, stone crafts using local marble, granite, slates.
And woodwork.
Two standouts. Katam band, intricate geometric ceiling work using small pieces of deodar wood, a specialty seen in houseboats, shrines, and walnut woodcraft carving intricate designs on walnut wood introduced by Sheikh Hamza Maktoum. Boxes, bowls, furniture, really beautiful.
Such rich artistic traditions. What about performing arts? Music and dance.
Music reflects the regional diversity. Kashmir Valley music has Central Asian influences. Jammu leans towards North Indian classical folk. Ladakh's music is Tibetan-influenced.
Any specific forms?
Yes. Bahan is a Dogri folk song form, often sung without instruments. Bentha is sung in chorus by Bakarwal and Gujar communities. Chapri is very popular, especially at weddings, accompanied by instruments like the harmonium, rhubarb, and garaha, an earthen pot. Karak is a narrative ballad form sung by jogis.
And the instruments. You mentioned the rhubarb.
Yes, the rhubarb is a key string instrument, thought to have come from Turkestan. Other instruments include the damian, a guitar-like instrument, dahara, an iron rod with rings, saranda, Sazi Kashmir, sitar, though maybe less traditional, scaling, a flute-like instrument from Ladakh, and the tumbaknari, an earthen pot drum, often played by women.
Tumbaknari. Interesting. And dances.
Lots of folk dances performed on various occasions. Hafiz Nagma or Hafisa dance features a female dancer performing to Sufyana music, often at weddings. Jagarana is performed by women at the bridegroom's house during wedding celebrations.
What about community or festival dances?
Jambaro is a community dance of the nomadic Changpa people in Ladakh, performed during the Lusar New Year festival. Kud is a ritual dance performed, often all night, to honor local deities, Lokdevaras in the Jammu region. Roof is perhaps the most famous Kashmiri folk dance, performed by women, especially during festivals like Eid and Ramzan.
Roof. Okay. Any others?
Doomhal is a vibrant dance performed by men of the Watal tribe, often carrying a banner or flag. And the mask dance, known as Chum in Ladakh, is a spectacular feature of Buddhist monastery festivals like Hemis, depicting deities and mythological figures.
Mask dances. Must be quite a sight. Which brings us to fairs and festivals. Must be a packed calendar.
Absolutely packed. Fairs like the Puramandal Mela near Samba, held during Shivratri, are major religious gatherings. The Bahu Mela happens twice a year at the historic Bahu Fort Temple in Jammu. The Mansar Food and Craft Mela showcases local culture.
And festivals. Religious ones first.
Loads. Buddhist festivals in Ladakh feature those masked dances. Dosmoche, Stok Guru Tsechu, Mato Nagrang. Tihar involves the worship of Nagas, serpent deities. And the Amarnath Yatra is a massive annual Hindu pilgrimage pilgrimage to the holy Icelingam cave in the Kashmir Himalayas.
What about cultural or seasonal festivals?
Lori is celebrated, especially in Jammu. The Tulip Festival in Srinagar is huge now, showcasing the garden, but also local handicrafts, food. Gir Hawani Mela is an important festival for Kashmiri Pandits at the Ragnia Devi Temple. Sindhu Darshan Festival celebrates the Indus River in Leh.
Hemmis Festival, you mentioned that.
Yes, Hemmis Festival is the biggest monastic festival in Ladakh, celebrating Guru Padmasambhava's birth anniversary, famous for its elaborate mask dances, chum, performed by lamas. Guri's festival promotes the culture, crafts, and adventure sports of the remote Guruz Valley. Chamri Anchak in Ladakh also features sacred dances.
And Islamic festivals.
Of course. Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of Ramzan, and Eid al-Zuha, the festival of sacrifice, are major celebrations observed throughout the region by the Muslim community. A very diverse festive landscape.
Clearly. Okay, let's look at the modern landscape now. Education and health. What's the setup?
The education system runs from primary up to university level. The Jammu and Kashmir State Board of School Education, JKBS, established in 1970, oversees school education. Hindi is generally the medium of instruction in government schools.
Universities.
Several key universities. The University of Jammu and the University of Kashmir were both set up in 1969. There's Sher Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology, SKUIST, with campuses in both Srinagar 1982 and Jammu 1999. Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University, SMVDU, near Katra was established in 1999, plus central universities in both Kashmir 2009 and Jammu 2011.
Medical and engineering colleges.
Yes, there are government medical colleges in Srinagar, Jammu, and newer ones in other districts. Also engineering colleges like NIT Srinagar and Government College of Engineering and Technology in Jammu, plus private institutions.
Any specific government initiatives in education?
Adherence to the National Education Policy, providing free textbooks for elementary classes, building hostels specifically for girls to encourage their education, implementing the choice-based credit system, CBCS, at the university level. Schemes like Beti Padhao were implemented in 5 districts identified with low child sex ratios. There was a CM Scooty scheme offering subsidies for college girls, and a science talent promotion scheme to encourage science education.
Okay. How about the health sector? Infrastructure.
The sources mentioned around 5,534 health institutions in total, including both government, about 4,443, and private, about 1,101. This includes 22 district hospitals and around 375 primary health centers, PHCs, providing basic care.
What about health outcomes or stats?
Based on 2016 data mentioned, the doctor-patient ratio was 1.1658, which is below the WHO recommendation of 1.1000. However, J&K actually performed better than the national average on several key indicators.
Better? In what way?
Lower infant mortality rate, IMR, at 24 per 1,000 live births. Lower total fertility rate, TFR, at 1.6. Lower crude birth rate, CBR, at 15.7, and crude death rate, CDR, at 5.0, and significantly, a higher life expectancy at 72.6 years compared to the national average.
That's quite positive. Any specific health schemes?
Central schemes like Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, providing maternity benefits, and Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhayan, offering free antenatal checkups, were implemented. Also initiatives like mobile medical units to reach remote areas and establishing trauma centers, especially important given the high rate of road accidents on difficult roads.
Good focus areas. Now, sports. What's popular in J&K?
Cricket is huge, like everywhere in India. The J&K Cricket Association fields teams in the Ranji Trophy and Vijay Hazare Trophy. Players like Parvez Rasool, the first cricketer from J&K to play for India, and Jasia Akhtar, a prominent woman cricketer, have emerged.
What else besides cricket?
Archery is a traditional sport, especially in Leh and Kargil. Golf is surprisingly well established, with beautiful courses like the Royal Spring Golf Course in Srinagar and the historic Kashmir Golf Club, one of the oldest.
Adventure sports must be big too.
Definitely. River rafting is popular on the Indus and Zanskar rivers in Ladakh and the Litter River in Pahaldam. Skiing is world-class in Gulmarg, often rated the best skiing resort in the Himalayas, and uniquely, it offers heli skiing. Trekking is massive, especially in Ladakh and routes like the Amarnath Yatra pilgrimage trek.
Heli skiing.
Oh.
Wow. Any major stadiums?
Sher Kashmir Stadium in Srinagar is primarily for cricket. Bakshi Stadium, also in Srinagar, is mainly for football, and there's a Vishwanathan Stadium mentioned for polo, possibly in Jammu.
Are there state awards for sports?
Yes, the Shura Kashmir Sports Award was instituted back in 1971. There's also a Chief Minister's Gold Rolling Trophy for competitions and state awards for outstanding sportspersons.
Any famous names in sports we should know?
We mentioned Parvez Rasool. Arun Malhotra was a former Indian national footballer. Gul Mustafa Dev was the first Winter Olympian from J&K, an alpine skier. Mithun Manhas was another cricketer who played extensively in domestic cricket. Jain Singh is a successful sport shooter, winning medals at the Asian Games. Rajinder Singh is a wushu player. Bil Kashmir is notable as the first Kashmiri woman national coach for kayaking and canoeing. Kuldeep Handu is the national wushu coach.
Quite a few making their mark. What about general state awards and honors?
The state government conferred various awards: Chief Minister's Gold and Silver Medals for excellence in executing infrastructure projects, awards for bravery, literature, performing arts, arts and crafts, social reforms, meritorious public service, lifetime achievements, also specific awards for media persons and industrial entrepreneurship.
Any specific ones stand out?
The Chief Minister's Vigilance Medal was specifically for recognizing efforts in eradicating corruption and promoting transparency. There was the Tabindagani State Award of Bravery for children up to 16 years, with cash prizes and scholarships. The Jivan Raksha Padak Award Series recognized acts of saving lives.
Literary and cultural awards, too.
Yes, Best Book Awards in various languages, a Best Photography Award, and the Sammapa Vitasta Award, associated with the Sapori family of musicians, recognized contributions to classical music. And, of course, the Police Medal for gallantry or distinguished service.
A wide range of recognition. Let's touch on some notable personalities from history and politics.
Okay. Dr. Karan Singh. We mentioned the first and only Sardar Riyasat, then the first governor. Sheikh Abdullah, a towering figure, was the first prime minister of J&Co House. Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad succeeded him and is often called the architect of modern Kashmir for overseeing significant development work. Prithvi Nath Dar was an influential economist who served in the PMO and received the Padma Vibhushan. Syed Mir Qasim was a chief minister involved in drafting the J&K constitution. More recently, Ghulam Nabi Azad and Mehbooba Mufti Saeed served as chief ministers, with Mehbooba Mufti being the first woman CM of the state.
Okay, now let's bring it right up to date with some recent developments mentioned in our sources, mostly around 2018-2019. What was happening politically?
Well, a key development was the extension of President's rule for 6 more months, starting from July 3, 2019. This followed the imposition of Governor's rule in June 2018 and then President's rule 6 months later.
Okay. Any major legislation?
The Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Amendment Bill 2019 was passed. It extended reservation benefits in jobs and education to people living in areas adjoining the international border, IB, putting them on par with those living near the line of control.
Your policy changes.
Yes, a new healthcare investment policy was introduced in 2019 to encourage private sector participation. It offered subsidies like 30% on capital investment and a 5% interest subsidy to promote private hospitals and medical institutions.
What about elections?
The 2019 Lok Sabha general elections saw polling for the 6 seats in J&K. The results were split, with the BJP winning 3 seats in Jammu and Ladakh regions, and the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference, JKNC, winning the other 3 in the Kashmir Valley.
And the big administrative change regarding Ladakh.
Huge news. On February 8, 2019, the state government officially created a separate administrative and revenue division for Ladakh. This new division comprised the Leh and Kargil districts, with Leh designated as the divisional headquarters. It fulfilled a long-standing demand from the region.
Major shift. Any high-profile visits or project launches?
Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the state in February 2019 and launched several development projects across all 3 regions, Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. Infrastructure got a boost, too, when Union Minister Nitin Gadkari inaugurated the first interstate bridge over the Ravi River at Kirian Gandial in Kathua district. This significantly reduced the travel distance between Kathua and Pathankot in Punjab.
Good for connectivity. Sports awards given out.
Yes, 11 sportspersons were conferred the Sher-e-Kashmir Sports Award for their achievements during the period 2016-2018.
Any legal or administrative bodies set up?
A state law commission was established in January 2019 for a 3-year term to review existing state laws and recommend changes.
What about the budget for 2019-20? Any highlights?
The budget had significant allocations. A major focus was on strengthening Panchayati Raj institutions after the local body elections. Funds were allocated for rural development, agriculture, healthcare, including setting up new AIMS campuses and augmenting hospital equipment, power sector, a large sum, Rs 5,000 crore just for power purchase, drinking water projects, developing industrial estates, tourism promotion, Rs 130 crore, and also for art, culture, and sports infrastructure.
Trying to tackle corruption.
The State Administrative Council approved the Jammu and Kashmir Benami Property Transactions Prohibition Bill 2018 in December 2018, aiming to curb illicit property deals.
And the state assembly status.
The governor, Satyapal Malik, had dissolved the Start Legislative Assembly in November 2018, citing instability and attempts at government formation through questionable means. This paved the way for fresh elections, though President's rule continued.
Any interesting tech or science collaborations?
Yes, the Central University of Jammu, CUJ, signed an OU with the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, in October 2018. The plan was to set up a Satish Dhawan Center for Space Science at CUJ, focusing on research in areas like disaster management, atmospheric science, using space technology for health, education, etc.
Space science in Jammu. Security developments.
A significant one was the inauguration of India's first smart fence pilot project along the Indo-Pak border in Jammu in September 2018. This involved deploying advanced surveillance technology like thermal imagers, radars, sensors, integrated into a command center for 24/7 monitoring.
Smart fence.
Yeah.
High-tech border security. Any milestones in the judiciary or banking?
Yes, Justice Geeta Mittal became the first woman Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court in August 2018, and in July 2018, J&K Bank launched its first dedicated all-women branch in Srinagar, aimed at empowering women financially.
First woman Chief Justice, all-women bank branch. Important steps. So, quite a lot happening in that period.
Absolutely, a period of significant political, administrative, and developmental activity.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground. History, geography, economy, culture, recent events. So let's try to synthesize this. What does this deep dive really tell us and tell you, our listener?
I think it clearly shows just how incredibly deep and diverse Jammu and Kashmir is. We've hopefully moved far beyond the common, often narrow perceptions. We've seen its complex ancient history, the layers upon layers of influence, its stunning but also challenging geography and rich natural resources, the incredibly vibrant and varied cultures and artistic traditions, and this constantly evolving modern landscape with its own set of challenges and aspirations.
It really does feel like a microcosm of India in many ways, doesn't it?
It really does. You see the ancient roots, the incredible diversity of peoples and languages, the economic goals, the political complexities. It's all woven together there.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe a final thought for you to ponder. Given this unique mix, the ancient traditions, the undeniable strategic importance of its geography, and all the ongoing development and changes we've discussed, what future challenges and perhaps also what future opportunities do you envision for Jammu and Kashmir as it continues its journey and finds its place on the global stage? Something to think about.